be coming to LA a couple of days here and then to New York.
In fact, you can see some of the houses at Hollywood Land. If you look below the sign in between the two commercial buildings, you can see some of the big houses back there in Hollywood.
So here's one that's pretty woman on there. Yeah, so straight ahead.
Local interviewer that he wanted to live close to the spirit of the king of rock and roll. He was, of course, talking about Elvis Presley's house across the street. This is where Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz used to live. This is where Lucy and Desi were living when they were producing I Love Lucy for television. Pretty nice art collection back there.
Showing them off. Oh yeah? Alright.
Let's not forget the
Here we are in Hollywood, trying to go to the Walk of Fame.
Just wait. Joe DiMaggio. You got all that. See you guys. Oh, no, he's too good.
A menos que Candy. Bueno, como la canto para ustedes.
Blankets.
And there's some blue final location where we get a nice view of the Hollywood sign. And then after we look at the Hollywood sign, we're going to start working our way over toward Beverly Hills. Beverly Hills is about the driving to do to get up to the houses, or neighborhood where the houses are located. Part of Hollywood that we're in right here. The street that we're going to cross up here is Wilcox Avenue. This was the street that was named in honor of a guy by the name of Harvey Wilcox. Harvey Wilcox was the founder of Hollywood. That we're turning onto, but in those days they called it the El Camino Real. It was the King's Road. It was the road that was built by the Spanish army. In fact, you can see some of the houses at Hollywood Land. If you look below the sign in between the two commercial buildings, you can see some of the big houses back there in Hollywood. And it's like that, I think. It's just about every day of the week. You'll find some times, some of the off hours where it's not busy. Kind of a multi-purpose facility over the course of the year. We do gatherings here quite frequently. They just recently did a big event for the daytime. Many awards in the world, not only because it's one of the finest hospitals, but it's famous because of all the celebrities that either finished. If we had a celebrity here, we'd have a crowd of paparazzi up front. They typically stand over here to the side. Like I said, Saturdays generally aren't the best days for celebrity sightings like Robert's Award. These are flagship stores. They're pretty easy formula to understand. The biggest of the big, the newest of the new. And Rodeo Drive, unlike Melrose Avenue, is a very small, compact shopping district. So if you're on a mission to find the right fashion, you can cover a lot of ground here on Rodeo Drive in a short period of time.
So here's one the pretty woman on there. Pairs them straight ahead.
We'll find the homes of some of the most Charlie's Angels, Beverly Hills, 90210, Melrose Place, Knots Landing, Dynasty, the OC, Charm, Starsky and Hutch.
Really?
When Aaron Spelling developed this property 25 years ago at a cost of nearly $200 million, this was the most expensive home that had ever been built in the history of the United States. Now, more expensive homes have been built since Aaron Spelling developed this property. The conclusion that Aaron Spelling's widow came to when Aaron Spelling died a couple of years ago, his widow, Candy Spelling, promptly moved 100 empty rooms, 56,000 square feet of space that now basically just maintained, waiting for somebody to step up to the plate and buy it. If you're interested, it's currently offered at $185 million, one of them. This is where Hugh Hefner's ex-wife, Kimberly Conrad, lives, former Playboy Playmate centerfold model. She's the mother of Hugh Hefner's two sons. It's Holly, Bridget, and Kendra. Although I just saw last week, this is the mansion right here. I just saw last week that Holly is moving out. And it sounded like maybe Bridget and Kendra weren't far behind. Hugh Hefner's ready for new girlfriends, I guess. The home of Will Smith and Jada Pinkett. Met out on Hollywood Boulevard earlier this summer.
That's nice, isn't it?
He was out there shaking hands, signing autographs in front of the Chinese Theater. He was out there for the premiere of this new movie, Hancock. Stood out there for 3 hours, which was really kind of unprecedented because usually when the celebrities show outside the theater, sneak out a side door and they're gone. Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner just recently purchased this house. They haven't actually moved in yet, they're waiting for the contract. But according to the article that I read, they're supposed to move in sometime late October, early November. Here on Sunset Boulevard, it goes back to Hollywood ultimately. It goes all the way to downtown Los Angeles, about 30 miles to downtown LA. House on my right, this is where Richard Gere was living. He was starring in the movie Pretty Woman. This is the house that Richard Gere sold to a lady by the name of Sherry Lansing. She's the former head of Paramount Motion Picture Studios. Considered to be one of the most powerful ladies in Hollywood. Sherry Lansing still lives here. Next to Sherry Lansing, see the home of the fashion designer Massimo. This is the house that Nicolas Cage purchased from the British pop singer Tom Jones. Tom Jones lived here for almost 25 years, the red brick house back there. Prior to Tom Jones, this was the home of the American entertainer Dean Martin. And here on my right, you can see where Paris Hilton used to live. The house belongs to her mom and dad, Rick and Kathy Hilton.
See around here, what? Because he said he...
Paris lived here for about a year and a half. When the family first came to California about 5 years ago, she comes over to check on the progress of the... And this house you've probably seen before, Millionaire. So the house was only used for what are called the establishing scenes. That's when you see the house in that montage at the beginning. The montage that introduces you and establishes the characters, the location. Of course, all the production workers star Elizabeth Taylor.
Oh, yeah.
This is Elizabeth Taylor. Taylor's house on my left.
Oh, that one. No. I think he's got all day looking at me. There's people going by.
Cary Grant.
Yeah, people and they're yelling here.
It was, of course, a former
Yeah.
home. Cary Grant passed.
Cary Grant.
When he was living here, he starred in a movie that was being produced by his neighbor down the street. A British producer and director by the name of Alfred Hitchcock lived in this house until his death. Alfred Hitchcock was a producer of some of Hollywood's scariest thrillers, movies like Psycho, The Birds, Vertigo, North by Northwest. He had a very popular television. Right here, he was the star of a TV show called Mad About You. And she also starred in a motion picture opposite Jack Nicholson called As Good as It Gets. And if you look to my right, you can see where Samuel Goldwyn used to live, that house with the columns, the black gate. Samuel Goldwyn was one of the greatest producers of motion pictures in the Hollywood. One of the founding members. Tens of thousands of houses scattered over here, started their family. Bruce and Demi got a divorce. Bruce didn't want to be too far away from the kids, so he moved to that house over there. Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher got married. They lived in this house for a brief period of time, but they moved away. They moved from this neighborhood a couple of years ago. Stewart.
Oh, yeah, Rod.
Back here's where Rod Stewart lives. This is the house that was featured on the MTV series Cribs, homes of the rich and famous in the music industry. This is where Frank Sinatra lived during a phase of his career called the Rat Pack years. This was the house where Frank Sinatra entertained President Kennedy after the election in 1960. John Kennedy.
There's a cat, Mom. Cat. Puss, 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 puss.
Stayed in the guest house right over there. Across the street is where Barbra Streisand's estate's located. Her home also completely blocked from view box.
Ah.
Howard Weitzman was one of the first Americans to start importing Toyota automobiles into the United States. See the blue doors where George Harrison used to live? His last home. This was the last home of Clark Gable. Clark Gable was the star of one of Hollywood's greatest of blockbusters, a movie called Gone with the Wind.
Oh, yeah.
Your mum would like that one.
Yeah. Got combo,
Eh?
Got
Yeah,
combo.
combo. Yeah, there you go. Sorry, you would like combo.
Yeah.
Combo's here.
Next to Clark Gable's last home, we have the home of the comedian and actor Steve Martin.
Steve Martin.
Yellow house on my right.
Yeah.
He's got good.
On Connery. And up here.
Car, okay?
Yeah.
And right up here where you see this red car going in. This was Elvis Presley's last California home. This is where Elvis lived when he was married to Priscilla.
Oh, wow. Gates in there. Yeah, God just drove
This was
in.
the last house that Elvis moved in before he bought the Graceland Mansion in Memphis, Tennessee, after he and Priscilla divorced. He sold off this property, left California. told a local interviewer that he wanted to live close to the spirit of the king of rock and roll. He was, of course, talking about Elvis Presley's house across the street. This is where Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz used to live. This is where Lucy and Desi were living when they were producing I Love Lucy for television. Back across the street, this house belonged to David O. Selznick. He was the guy that produced the movie Gone with the Wind. Considered to be one of the greatest producers of motion pictures in the history of Hollywood. An actress by the name of Diane Keaton. Diane Keaton lived there for almost 5 years prior to Madonna. California home of George Clooney. It's where George Clooney lived with his celebrity aunt Rosemary Clooney. Rosemary Clooney and Jose Ferrer. George Clooney's aunt and uncle lived in his house. Rosemary Clooney was a singer, a dancer, and an actress. George lived here for about 3 years till he was able to get his career going. Polly Bergen. Next to Polly Bergen, last home of an actress by the name of Agnes Moorehead. Agnes Moorehead was a star of a TV show called Bewitched. Played the role of Samantha's mom in Dora the Witch. Next to Agnes Moorehead, George Gershwin, the music composer. This is the house that you see highest up on the hill. It's the White House. Signed a $250 million contract to play soccer for the Los Angeles Galaxy soccer team.
Oh, yeah. Lock the gates. There's the water fountain going on. Yeah. There's a black bus there.
Bond, TV series Bond. B. Arthur's home right here. Next to B. Arthur, another actress by the name of Kathy Bates. Her film credits are Dan or Sean John, if you know him only as the fashion industry mogul that he is. Billy Ray and Miley Cyrus live right over here. Miley Cyrus, the newest creation of the Disney Corporation in the form of Hannah Montana. Now superstar, recording artist, actress, Gloria Swanson. She was one of the first movie stars to come over to Beverly Hills. People like Gloria Swanson, Mary Pickford, Douglas Fairbanks, Charlie Chaplin. It was the superstars who left Hollywood first to come over to Beverly Hills. This wife is she was an actress named Jane Wyman. Jane Wyman was the one that started the Guess clothing company. His Ferrari collection here is considered to be one of the largest private collections of Ferraris in the world.
You can see it.
Pretty nice art collection back there.
Showing them off. Oh yeah? Alright.
And let's not forget the little clothing boutique down on. Even before movie stars started living in Beverly Hills, they started coming to a couple more houses here in Beverly Hills. Saw the MTV reality series The Osbournes. That's where Sharon and Ozzy Osbourne used to live. Aguilera. It's now Christine Aguilera's home.
Is it?
If you look through the bushes here on the corner, you can just barely see her signature white Rolls Royce through the bushes. Saw Ozzy here on a couple occasions when they were living there, but I've yet to see Christine Aguilera.
Is that Ozzy Osbourne?
Next gate.
Yeah, but who
one of these days
for that?
Driving out. The White House was. W. Reynolds, minister of the Sierra Tower. The actress Suzanne Pleshette used to live here until she passed away. If you see it on TV at sometime in the future, you can say, "Oh yeah, I remember we drove by that place." Don't know if it's going to make any one of the channels or not. Rio. Keanu Reeves, Tobey Maguire, Ellen DeGeneres all have homes up in this neighborhood.
Oh, there you go.
She's the actress who got busted for shoplifting in Beverly Hills
Oh,
about
yeah.
6.5 years ago.
Yeah, I remember that.
Career. Down the hill. He was driving a little silver Prius, had his girlfriend in the front seat. And in the movie trilogy, The Matrix, Keanu Reeves lives right here. Had 3 sightings of Keanu Reeves in front of his house since
Actually,
July
here.
of this year.
See, look. See, what unusual. Hear me there.
As you see the 3 concrete columns in front of the garage.
Yeah.
What's even more interesting, though, is the view to downtown Los Angeles. You can kind of get an idea of what I call the sex appeal of the Hollywood Hills. That's downtown LA way off in the distance. Homes like Tobey Maguire have views all the way out to the Pacific Ocean. And of course, she played the role of Monica on the television series Friends. She lived here with her husband, David Arquette, until Friends went out of production. Then they moved from this house to their Malibu Beach home. Farmers Market and the CBS television studios. That's the Farmers Market over there. That's the CBS television studios. Farmers Market, the Grove Shopping Center right next to CBS. House up on the side of the hill. I'm going to pull up to the next stop sign before we get much better views for photographs. Next stop sign.
Look at the view.
The Pink House? The Sunset Strip is the traditional party neighborhood in Los Angeles. It's just a section of Sunset Boulevard between Hollywood and Beverly Hills. Famous for speaking hotels, restaurants, and neighborhoods.
But I wanted to get ketchup. Here, I'll get ketchup.
Recognize that location.
Yeah, I've seen that show.
Wait, you go to the back. Now you see where it says
Yep.
Stretch rooftop lounge, the Sky Bar. Sky Bar is often referenced in the Glamour magazine because of the frequent celebrity comedy store. That's the Hyatt on my left. It's called
I was hearing somebody. Who's this? My friend in Vancouver. This one.
Hey?
Hollywood, I'm like, I'm in trip trying to hang out. Don't even worry about it, huh?
Yeah.
You get the girls, eh?
You don't like to control military and stuff?